SPED 2010 students. I hope everyone is doing well. So we are actually in week 13. I can't believe it. Week 13 content is actually open now. I know this week is going to be a short week with Thanksgiving, but for the sake of time, we're really going to have to make sure that we get this content done. It will be due on Sunday, 11/26. So I went ahead and opened it, and I encourage you guys to go ahead and work on it ahead of time so you can get this done. So we are going to be looking at how you can support students in the classroom, specifically through what we call differentiated instruction. So with differentiated instruction, it really looks at how you can maximize the learning of all students. Because we talked about how each classroom has a unique set of learners, and so it's your job to support those learners. So really, when we're looking at this week and the strategy of differentiated instruction, we're really looking at what kind of specific tools can I use based on what student characteristics or what learning opportunities do I have, and we're looking at, again, if they have exceptionalities, and then what should I do to support them, and what would that look like. So we're going to be concentrating specifically on differentiated instruction. So I'm going to go ahead and jump on in of what you're going to be doing this week. So when we're looking at differentiated instruction, the first place I want you to start, obviously, is going to be your reading from your textbook. So Chapter 2 in Exceptional Learners really dives into how you support students in the classroom using differentiated instruction. So you're really starting on page 22. So the things that you're really going to be specifically looking at when we're talking about this chapter, I want you to pay close attention to when it starts talking about how are these students evaluated, especially those who are receiving special education services. How do I identify them? So what does that look like? So that's actually going to be on pages 22 through 26 in your textbook. The next thing that we're really going to be paying attention to is the intent behind the law, that special education law, the IDEA, and how that applies to you in the classroom, and what does it mean when you are implementing support for the students, especially those who are receiving special education services. And that is pages 26 through 30 in the book, so pay close attention to that section. The other part you're going to be looking at in Chapter 2 is really looking on the intent, right? The intent of special education law, and then diving really into, okay, now that we know this student is receiving services and we know its intent behind the law, but what kind of placement options do we have for these students, right? So we can support them the best way that meets their needs. So that's really going to be looking at page 30. And it starts there. The next thing is looking at how could you implement these, what we call inclusionary practices. What does that mean, and how do we implement them? And that is going to start on page 32 and go through 35. So pay attention to that section. I also want you to look in this text when it starts talking about collaboration. And we talked so much about that when we were in week 4, about how important it was for you as an educator to collaborate with others, especially building that strong relationship or partnership with the families. Well, there's also collaboration between you and the special ed teacher. And what does that look like? So I want you to pay attention to that, and that starts at page 35 and goes through 37. So also you need to look at what is your specific role when you're trying to support the students in their IEP. What does that look like? Okay, so I want you to look at that. I want you to look at what does universal design mean? Universal design for learning, what's also known as UDL. And that's going to be starting on page 40 in your textbook. And I really want you to pay attention to that, because universal design for learning is a strategy of differentiated instruction. What does it look like? What is the model? Can I customize it? How does it support students? So I want you to really look at this as a trend that's happening in classrooms. And then, of course, how do we in today's time incorporate technology to support students? And what would that look like? So I want you to look at that as well. Now, I do have an article here for you that really dives a little bit deeper into differentiated instruction. It's called What is Differentiated Instruction and Why Differentiate? So when we're looking specifically at this model, this strategy, it was actually created by Carol Ann Tomlinson. And she really is a differentiated expert. And she says a lot about how teachers can use this. But the main thing to note that she speaks about as an expert in differentiated instruction is that it specifically is stating that you, the teacher, are going to anticipate the student's needs, right? We're looking specifically at their readiness, their interests, their learning profiles, and as a result, you're creating these paths of learning for them, right? We want them to learn as much as they can and as deeply as they can, but we don't want to overwhelm them and give them anxiety. We also want everything we're doing to be engaging. That's why specifically we're looking at their interest as well. So it can be challenging at first trying to engage learners, but this strategy can really help you meet the needs of your unique learners, especially those who even have exceptionalities in your classroom. So this is a wonderful article, and I really want you to read this. I think you can get a lot out of this, and it will follow up with what you're learning about in Chapter 2. I also have a presentation here for you, a PowerPoint presentation that goes in basically talking about the history of differentiated instruction, where it's rooted in, specifically looking at IDEA and how this came about, and also about it resulted from the No Child Left Behind Act in 2001, right? And it even dives into what the pros and cons, because obviously with anything that we do in our classroom, even if it's a research-based strategy as this, there's always things we have to weigh, like the pros and the cons. In the presentation, I also give you some examples. So it's important for me as a learner to see what this looks like in action. One thing I do want to note is whenever I give you videos or any kind of links, if you're in presentation mode, like slideshow mode, it will pull it up, or you might even hit right click and it'll take you to the YouTube video. So make sure you look at that presentation to further your understanding. Now, how are you going to be assessed this week? Well, I do have an IRIS module for you here. And this IRIS module really talks about what this looks like. How does this strategy, this research-based strategy, look like in the classroom? I want to maximize the learning of all students. So what does it look like? Give me some examples of when we talk about looking specifically at the student readiness, which is their level, where their interest is, and what are their preferences, right? So you're going to go through this IRIS module, and I actually have a worksheet here for you. Once you get through, I always encourage students, whenever you're through going through the module, take notes, look at those guiding questions, your initial thoughts, because it's really going to help guide the module and your understanding. And there's lots of great resources in this. It's almost, you look at this almost like a professional development, right, for yourself as a teacher, as a future teacher. So as you go through, when you get through the end, I really want you to look at the assessment. The assessment really helps gauge your understanding. It provides that feedback you need to see if you really have a grasp on this research-based strategy. You will not be turning this in. What you're going to be doing is when you're finished with the IRIS module, yes, I encourage you to do the assessment, but you're going to be looking at specifically a worksheet. Okay, so this is what you will submit to Dropbox, and that is going to be what I assess, right? So this is going to assess your learning. You will see here within the worksheet, I actually provide you with page numbers. That way you can go in and you'll know exactly what page I'm referring to, where you can find the answers inside the IRIS module. So please pay attention to that. One thing I want to note, on the UDL section, please do not do that. That is just extra, and a lot of this can derive from your textbook, but we didn't get really too much into that, so please do not do the UDL section. It's not going to give you extra credit, so just disregard that. I'm only wanting you to do the differentiated instruction section, okay? And that's what you will submit to Dropbox. Also, under assignments, I have given you another way to get feedback. I have provided you with a Nearpod quiz, and when you click on it, it should open in a new window, which will allow you, I did check the link, so it should be working. You should be able to type your name in there or your nickname, and it should take you to the Nearpod quiz and presentation, which is a way for you not only get feedback, but to interact with the presentation as well. So that's something that I've given you as well as part of an assessment. Okay, so that is working. But that's what we're going to be doing. As I said, it's due Sunday, November 26th. It is open now. So go ahead and look at it. This video will be posted on the course homepage, and that will allow you to go ahead and work on it early if you want. So just looking ahead a little bit, this week is obviously going to be Thanksgiving week, so the college is closed Wednesday through Friday, right? So there will be no classes, which I know this is online, but for those of you that are not online, the college is closed Wednesday, November 22nd through Friday, November 24th, because that is going to be our holiday for Thanksgiving. Also looking ahead, the last week we're going to have is going to be week 14, where we talk about explicit instruction, which is kind of going along a little bit with differentiated instruction, as it is a research-based strategy to support students in the classroom. Then we will also have our post-test and course feedback, as well as our last exam. And I will be talking about that in the next video when we are doing week 14. So we will discuss that a little bit more in depth. I will go over with you when your final exam will open, when should you be completing your course feedback, and also your post-test. All right, so that concludes this week for week 13. I hope everyone has a wonderful Thanksgiving, and hopefully you get to spend some time with your family. And even if you don't celebrate Thanksgiving, I do hope that you get a little bit of time to rest. All right, guys, until next time, take care.